Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. A few days ago in the video, the Venomous Vienna Part 5, I pointed out the path of the f-pawn in that game. Yesterday, I played another game of the Vienna Gambit, where the opponent played a very similar response. They declined the gambit with d6 and then developed their other knight to c6. Very interestingly, my f-pawn followed the same meandering path, capturing their way to the g7 square where it locks the opponent rook in place by threat of promotion. This seems to be a potentially powerful tactic, and if you are playing with the black pieces, it's important to beware of the manoeuvres of this pawn. Please enjoy! Alright, let's start by having a look at the review, chess.com's algorithm. I played okay, I suppose, 76%, opponent a little bit less accurately at 65%. And in this game, I mostly held the advantage, though a few times it came close to equality and some dips due to some blunders on my part. Nonetheless, I played for the win, again, slightly more accurate than my opponent. Let's now have a look at the analysis. So the Vienna game starts with e4, e5, knight c3. Opponent played knight f6, f4 is the Vienna Gambit. So inviting a trade of that pawn, the opponent declines with d6, and d5 is in fact the best response and enters the Vienna game main line. Now to d6, the best response is what I played, which is knight f3. Opponent here developed their other knight, knight c6, and now this allows for d4, taking control of the center. The opponent attempts to pin with bishop g4. However, in this situation, we can pawn captures back, and now watch this pawn. So I came here, it's going to go here, capture the knight, and capture the pawn on g7. And if that bishop is no longer defending that square, the opponent is forced to bring their rook to g8 to block promotion. And this actually happened in a game I played a few days ago. And let's just watch. Now keep an eye on that f pawn. So here, obviously the queens look at each other. Now there's no reason not to do queen captures queen, and that's expected. So opponent now cannot castle onto that side. On the other hand, I cede the d file to the opponent's rook. However, I'm still slightly ahead in this position. Pawn captures pawn. Opponent sort of liquidates by capturing now the knight with the bishop. I now capture their knight with my pawn. Opponent slips their bishop out of the way, and here I opted to develop bishop b5, pinning the opponent's knight to the king, Stockfish reckoned that this move was potentially better, and I can sort of see why. It potentially sort of attacks the opponent's pawn on c7, which comes with check. The opponent tries to play symmetrically with bishop b4, pinning my knight to my king. However, as they've now moved that bishop, you remember that bishop was defending the g7 square. By ceding that move, it now allows the pawn to capture, and now on the 7th rank, so quite powerful. And for the opponent to prevent promotion, they are now forced to defend the promotion square to block with rook on g8, and that effectively gums up that rook. That rook cannot move from that position until they're able to get rid of that pawn. And it's actually not that easy for the opponent to do so. So as expected, here I thought I could just simply play to defend right away, but I thought here I had an opportunity, since I'm slightly up on material, I can capture with check. That sort of, damages the opponent's pawn structure, and now move the bishop. So about +1, about +1. So given that I'm a +2 on material, so the opponent is actually slightly better in position, but you know, being up on material is up on material. The opponent moves the king out of the way, I think maybe to try to link up these two rooks. However, you can see that Stockfish considered that to have been a blunder. So almost +4 now to me. I shot castled, you know, which also, you know, brings the rook. Now, obviously can't capture right away. The opponent's bishop is looking there. Opponent brings rook de8, you know, with an attack. That makes sense, but of course that is defended at the moment. So ask the question, what are they going to do? Yep, so that probably wasn't the best move given capture, opponent captures back, don't they? Anyway, that's all right. Captures. Well, it's interesting. You know, that was apparently actually a bad move. Yeah. So, yeah, that makes sense. You know, to remove the defender of that pawn allows the opponent to get rid of that threat. Here, I ask, do they want to trade? Do they want to trade rooks? They do so. I'm happy here. Still +4. Opponent now plays rook b8, which I thought was probably a mistake. I thought that was probably a mistake. Maybe they were thinking potentially of trying to fork those two pawns. Here, I opt to move the king out of the way because that means now I can move that rook without the opponent being able to, you know, gain tempo with check. Opponent plays bishop b6. Now, here is quite interesting because here, obviously, the opponent is looking to try to capture that pawn. And so I have got a potential tactic here, given that they're probably really focused on trying to capture that piece. So with check, opponent now moves the king to e6. Now, the thing is, that does mean that, that there is a possibility that I could defend that square, now making it impossible for the opponent to prevent promotion. So let's see what they do. So I make that move, and I knew that that was probably an error because the opponent could block quite simply with that pawn, and I've got nothing if they do that. But I thought they were going to be focused on capturing with that attack on the rook. So this was a trap, I thought. And they took the trap. So here we go. They captured because that was what they were thinking. That was a blunder because now I have rook d8, basically asking, you know, what are they going to do? If they move the rook anywhere else, straight up, no, I get it. I get a queen. If they capture back, still queening. So this is a completely winning position for me. I think the opponent noticed the mistake after this move and opted to resign. So good game, GG. And you know, this F pawn went here, 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 here. A very powerful sequence of moves. GG. I've described in a number of games of the Vienna Gambit now that d6 simply isn't the best response to the Vienna Gambit. If faced with the Vienna Gambit, d5 is the only move that doesn't immediately give an advantage to white, and indeed d5 enters the main line of the Vienna game. I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.